We've got Batya Leventhal live in Nahria for us now, I-24 News' International Affairs Correspondent. Batya, the American envoy Amos Hochstein, which we just spoke about, departed Beirut without inking any kind of agreement. Should we be surprised by this conclusion?
Right, no, Sarah, we should not be surprised by such a conclusion. I'll remind our viewers that this was Hochstein's second visit to the region in less than 2 months. Again, this has been a dispute that's been ongoing for years, that really picked up steam both in 2021 and recently about a month ago, with both sides sort of pulling those steam pipes, making sure that they are getting their say in that. And so while it's not surprising that he is leaving the region again without a deal, it is surprising that in particular this time round, with the concessions that seem to be made on both sides, that he is leaving without a deal, as both sides seem very optimistic about a deal being clinched and obviously production starting in the offshore gas fields coming as soon as possible.
But what about the other side? So Hochstein seemed to be carrying an Israeli proposal with him while he was in the capital, Beirut, in response to the demarcation offer made by Lebanon last June. Break this down for us a little bit more for our viewers, please.
Right, so the Israeli energy minister was quite quiet about exactly what was in that proposal, worrying that it could potentially hurt the negotiations going forward. But what we do know is that Israel was willing to make concessions in terms of relinquishing any kind of claim or control over the Qana gas field, which lies on line 1 and above, as well as line 23, actually in the disputed area, but then heads north towards Lebanon's integral maritime border. And that was quite an interesting discussion, considering the fact that Israel is hoping to actually claim total control over the Karish region, which is further south on line 29 and more within Israel's jurisdiction and sovereignty, of which that is obviously being disputed by Lebanon. And so essentially what that would mean would be that each side to this dispute would have a gas field that they could start viable offshore drilling in order to get that gas up. And so this was really a concession being seen on Israel's side, but also on Lebanon's side, in particular with that of the terror group Hezbollah, which is not necessarily directly involved in any of the negotiations. But obviously with that relinquishing of control of Karish means that Hezbollah doesn't necessarily have more of a viable reason to start attacking Israel in the waters as such.
And Batya, what now for the two countries? How will Lebanon and Israel continue to go about settling their disagreements? Have more talks already been teed up for the future?
Well, a tale as old as time. We're talking about two countries that are still technically at war with one another. And so we are likely to see negotiations picking up speed as Israel continues to send more production vessels, as you mentioned, into the region. And while Lebanon continues to dispute the claim that the entire Karish field, including the northern part, lies in Israel's sovereignty. So until a negotiation has been reached, until both sides are willing to compromise, it's likely that we're just going to see a continuation of the status quo. And it's in particular quite versatile when you are looking at two adversaries. It's not that the entire situation is going to be solved, but rather pieces of it seen as a win for both sides. And so while Israel and Lebanon still technically are at war and a peace agreement is nowhere near in the future, coming to a conclusion and a settlement on the maritime borders could have been a win for both sides. Both sides are still hoping for that win, but obviously not going to take effect as of right now.
Batya Leventhal, thank you so much. She is live for us there in Nahria, the I-24 News' International Affairs Correspondent, with those details. Thank you.